Hello and welcome to this video in which I will be making a New Year's dress to kind of celebrate the transition from 2020 to 2021. The dress is inspired by a wedding dress, so it's gonna be a pretty big dress, but I did a sketch on my Instagram both of the dress and the pattern pieces that go into it. It's a pretty simple dress, it just requires a lot of fabric, which makes it a bigger project. The fabric that I'm using for this dress is this light purple crepe satin, which I got 9 yards of, and I intend on using all of them. And I think this color is pretty perfect because I also made a vision board for 2021 with all my goals, and the cardboard I used for that vision board was this color. It's the same color as the fabric. So I think that's pretty perfect and further solidifies that we're entering a new year. Alright, I think that's all the talking I need to do in the beginning of this video to introduce the dress. I will now move on to making the pattern pieces for the bodice. Alright, so to make the pattern pieces for the bodice of the dress, I used my bodice blocks and I just copied everything from the waist and up onto a piece of pattern paper for both the front and the back. Just a little side note, I am planning to make these bodice blocks that I'm using in this video in a lot of different sizes, also including sizes for taller and shorter people, to sell on my Etsy for cheap so that you guys can follow along my tutorials a lot easier and I have to spend less time explaining the pattern pieces that I'm using and how to make them. A basic bodice block is the foundation of almost every garment and it's just a great thing to have and to understand how to use. So stay tuned for that and hopefully you will give it a try. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do some dart manipulation. So I'm gonna move this dart from here to the armhole curve and I'm gonna show you how to do that because then we can make it into a princess theme bodice, which is what I want. And we're gonna do something similar over here, but it's gonna be a little bit easier over here on the back. So to do the dart manipulation on the front bodice, I went ahead and cut out the dart and then now I'm gonna draw a line from just somewhere that looks like the middle of the armhole curve to this line here, and I'm gonna cut this up with a scissor. I'm gonna cut as close to this point as possible without actually detaching this part of the pattern piece from the pattern. Alright, so I did exactly what I told you not to do and cut the whole thing off by accident, but it's okay, we'll work with it. So now we're gonna take this piece and move it from, it was here before, and then we're gonna take it and move it over here so that the dart moves from the shoulder to the armhole curve. And then we're just gonna tape this down so that it stays there. Alright, so now it's taped down. I'm also just gonna draw a line from the middle of the armhole curve on the back piece that matches up with the dart here. And then we're just gonna cut it out. Alright, so here we have the pattern pieces, here are the front pieces, and I just went ahead and curved this edge a little bit because it had a lot of harsh lines. But we're gonna cut this out on fold, and then we're gonna cut out 2 of these. For the back bodice, we're gonna cut out 2 of these and 2 of these, and then we're also gonna cut out the same amount for the lining fabric. So I went ahead and assembled the pattern pieces for the lining first. I think it looks pretty good, like it fits really well, and I think the placement of the princess dart is perfect. I also got the princess dart in the back, but it's a little harder to see. But other than that, I think this looks great and I'm ready to cut into my fashion fabric. Alright, I have now my bodice in my fashion fabric and I have it in my lining, and this lining is actually just an IKEA curtain. So it's not the best lining, but it's fine. Then I made a little sketch because now we're moving on to the skirt. The width of the skirt will be my waistline times 5. So for me, that's 4 meters. Then I want the skirt to have a slight train. So I'm gonna fold it in half, and then I'm gonna cut here, which is gonna be the front of the skirt, sloping downwards to the length of the back of the skirt. And then that's gonna give it a slight train. And then these are the lengths that I've decided on. In the front, it's gonna be 90 centimeters long, and in the back, it's gonna be 115. I'm gonna put a panel on, which is gonna be 40 centimeters long, so I have subtracted that from the length of the skirt. Okay, so the largest panel of the skirt is gonna be 4 meters long at the bottom. At the waist, it's gonna be pleated down to my waist measurement. So that's gonna be a pleat ratio of 1:5, which is a lot. Yeah, I think that's it for the skirt. So now I'm just gonna cut it out and do what I need to do. Alright, so here we have the skirt folded in half over here. And then you can see here is my length that I wanted in the front, which then slopes downwards to the length that I want in the back. And I actually ended up adding 10 more centimeters to this, so that's about 4 inches. I'm just gonna cut it out, cut along that line, and then I'm gonna pleat the top. So now that the skirt has been cut out, I'm gonna go ahead on the waistline. I'm gonna mark 1 inch all the way across. And this is because I'm making 1 inch pleats, so I just need to know how much fabric to pull into each pleat, and so this is gonna help out a lot. So yeah, we're gonna do that now. Alright, so to make these pleats, I'm taking from the last pleat I made, the second line. So there's a line here, and then there's the second line here. Then I'm taking that line and folding it over to the pleat. And then I'm holding that in place. Then I'm gonna take from this line, which is where the fold now is landing at. I'm gonna take that and fold it over to the line that's 2 inches away. So like this. And then I'm gonna gather them up in the back, put a pin in it to hold it in place, and there's my second pleat. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and do that for all of the skirt. Alright, so here we have the pleats all sewn down, pleated down to my waist measurements, and it is now time to attach it to the bodice. And right now I'm only attaching it to the fashion fabric bodice, not the lining, so the lining is gonna get attached later. Alright, so here we are with the skirt attached to the bodice, and I think it looks really good. And as you can see, there's a lot of volume in the skirt, which is understandable because there's like 4 meters of fabric here. The next step is to attach the panel down here so that the dress becomes full length and we can get that train on. Alright, so I just cut out 7 of these panels, which are 40 centimeters tall and 140 centimeters wide. And now I'm gonna attach them all right sides together, like this, so that they become one really, really long piece. Once these pieces are all sewn together, I'm gonna go ahead and gather it. And I'm gonna gather it down so that it fits around the bottom of the skirt. So yeah, let's get sewing. Alright, so I got all the panels sewn together, and this is what I have. And it just goes on. I have 10 meters. So there we go. So now I'm gonna sew a running stitch all the way down to the other end, turn it around and sew back up, and then I'm gonna gather it. Alright, so here is where we're at now. I have attached the bottom panel. I ended up gathering it down to a little more than half its length. Yeah, you can see it has a slight train in the back. Now all there's left to do is put a zipper in, put the lining in, and hem the bottom edge, and then I'm good. Alright, so I just wanted to show you how it looks when the zipper is attached. So like I said, I sandwiched it in between here, so it's between the lining and this is the zipper, the white one here. It's between the lining and the fashion fabric, and then when you turn that inside out, you get it like this, like really cleanly finished zipper on both sides, so it looks really good. I still have my raw edges up here at the top. That's gonna be the next step. And then down here, when I get to the bottom of where the lining ends, I fold it inwards towards the wrong side, because then that really also gives it a neat finish. And when we're ready to close this whole thing off, it's ready for that, because you can bend it like that and just do a blind stitch, and then you'll have a really nice finish over here as well. All right, so now that we got the zipper on, I'm gonna go ahead and just sew along the neckline here so that we get that closed off as well. Now I'm done with the neckline. I went ahead and understitched it to help the lining stay on the wrong side of the dress. And I went ahead also and did the armhole curves, and I'm gonna show you how I did that. Alright, so the way we're gonna hem the armhole curve is to fold in the fashion fabric and also fold in the lining fabric so that they are right sides together. Then you're gonna go inside the dress, and then you're gonna grab these two, hold them together like that, and then you're gonna flip it right side out, still holding it together because you really need this to know where to sew. And then there you go. Now you know you start sewing here, and then you just go all the way around until you get to this end again, and then it's hemmed. But all the layers are like very tangled into each other, so it's a little bit difficult, but it's manageable. Just take your time. All right, so I got everything on the bodice hemmed. I have the neckline hemmed. I have the armhole curve hemmed. As you can see, there's a little lining sticking out here and there, also over here. But I think I can fix that with an iron, so I'm not too worried about that. I think it looks really good. It looks really nicely finished, so I'm really happy with that. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close the back, because that's obviously not gonna work, and then hem the bottom of the dress, and then lastly close off the lining